She was just a poor girl with a baby and a worn-out diaper bag until one small act of kindness changed everything. When Arianna Fields comforted a crying boy in a park, she never imagined the man watching from the shadows was his father and the CEO of a multimillion-dollar company. But what happens when the lines between gratitude, power, and healing begin to blur? What if the very woman once deemed unfit by society becomes the heart of a broken family? What would you do if the child who needed you most wasn't your own but loved you, like you were all he had left? And how far would you go to stay? This isn't just a story about a rich man and a poor girl. It's about showing up. It's about the strength of quiet loyalty, the messiness of chosen family, and the courage it takes to stay when it would be easier to walk away. If you've ever believed that love isn't just blood, but who holds your hand through the hard parts, this story is for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's begin. The rain came down like cold needles against the window pane, drumming in soft, restless rhythm. Inside the small second-floor apartment on Detroit's east side, the glass was cracked in the corner, letting in just enough of the October chill to raise goosebumps on Arianna Fields' arms. She pulled her threadbare cardigan tighter and adjusted the baby blanket wrapped around her daughter. Luna, 6 months old and already far too familiar with uncertainty. Luna clung to her bottle like it was a lifeline. Arianna held her with practiced gentleness, swaying slowly as she stood barefoot on the creaking wooden floor. The bottle was only half full. Formula didn't stretch far these days, not with the price increases and her last paycheck coming and $35 short after hours were unexpectedly cut. The living room smelled faintly of burnt coffee and old dust. Bills folded, opened, then refolded were spread like a deck of cards across the coffee table. A few overdue notices, one eviction warning, and a pale blue envelope from the state that she hadn't dared open yet. Still, Luna gurgled softly, nuzzling into Arianna's shoulder, unaware of the weight pressing down on her mother's spine. "You're okay." "Moonlight," Arianna whispered, using the nickname she'd coined for Luna during a particularly long night filled with colic and crying. "You're gonna be okay. Mama's gonna figure this out." She said it softly, not as a promise, but a declaration of war against everything closing in poverty, abandonment, exhaustion, and that gnawing fear that whispered late at night. "You're not enough." 3 months had passed since Trey Luna's father had walked out under the guise of buying milk. Arianna had waited until morning, then 2 more days, then a week, but she knew. The silence screamed louder than any excuse. He'd left behind 3 half-empty drawers, a torn photo of them from the state fair, and a diaper bag that still smelled faintly like his cologne. She hadn't heard from him since. By 9:00 a.m., the apartment was quiet except for the leaky faucet ticking out time like a slow metronome. Arianna double-checked Luna's bag, 2 bottles, 1 emergency pacifier, 2 diapers, and a clean onesie. She gently laid her daughter in the second-hand stroller, which squeaked when she clicked it shut. "Let's go look brave," she whispered with a half-smile. The sidewalks downtown were still wet when she stepped off the bus with Luna bundled tight. The tall glass buildings loomed over her like watchmen of a world that had never welcomed her. Everyone around seemed to walk faster, straighter. Their heels clicked with certainty. Their suits told stories hers couldn't translate. Arianna's jeans were clean but frayed at the hem, and her sweater had been sewn back together more times than she cared to count. She avoided eye contact but kept her head up. You couldn't walk into a building like Marston and Gray Financial looking defeated. They'd smell it. A friend at her second job cleaning banquet halls had told her about a possible receptionist position. Nothing fancy, but full-time with benefits, and in a building with heat and health insurance. Arianna crossed through the plaza toward the tall glass structure. She could already feel Luna stirring beneath the stroller canopy, making little sounds that let her know time was ticking. She only had maybe 30 minutes before the baby would need a bottle. As she neared the steps, a sound cut through the morning bustle. Not a car horn, not sidewalk chatter. It was rawer than that, crying, but not the high-pitched cry of a hungry baby. This was the heavy, stuttering sob of someone older, someone hurting. Arianna looked around and spotted him. A little boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting alone on a concrete bench beside the building. His blazer was too clean for public school, and his shiny leather shoes looked untouched by mud or city grit. He looked like a catalog child until you saw his face, red-rimmed eyes, tear-tracked cheeks, shoulders hunched like the world had pressed down on them too hard. Luna whimpered in her stroller. Arianna instinctively reached down to adjust her blanket, but her eyes stayed on the boy. She turned back toward the building. She was already late. The job posting might have been filled. The security guard inside might not even let her in without an appointment. She could just walk away, but her feet didn't move. Mama Luna squeaked, "I know, baby girl. I see him too." She turned the stroller and slowly approached the bench. "Hey there," she said softly. "Are you okay?" The boy stiffened but didn't look up. "I'm fine," he muttered, but the tremble in his voice told another story. "I'm Arianna," she said, crouching so her voice matched his eye level, "and this little one is Luna. She thinks benches are for dancing." Luna let out a delighted squawk as if on cue. The boy glanced at the stroller, then at Arianna. His eyes were green-sharp, intelligent, and completely overwhelmed. "I'm Asher," he said finally. "Asher Whitmore." The name echoed inside her. Whitmore. She'd seen that on the building plaque outside. The Whitmore Tower, one of the top financial firms in Michigan. She looked at the boy again, his designer school blazer, the monogrammed backpack beside him, and the fact that no adult seemed to be anywhere nearby. "What's got you out here by yourself?" "Asher." His lips trembled. "My mom left 2 weeks ago. My dad said it was just a break, but I heard the maid say she's not coming back, that she said she couldn't handle us anymore." Arianna's throat tightened. The pain in his eyes, small and composed but splintering, was far too familiar. "I'm so sorry." "Asher," she said, reaching into her bag for a tissue. "Sometimes adults forget that kids notice everything." He took the tissue silently, his small hand brushing against hers. It was cold. Arianna sat gently on the bench beside him, leaving enough space to not crowd him. Luna cooed again, stretching out her tiny hand toward Asher. "She likes you," Arianna said. He smiled for half a second before the sadness returned. "Do you think she'll come back?" Arianna breathed in deeply. "I don't know, but I do know this: whatever your mom's going through, it's not your fault. People leave for their own reasons, but the ones who matter, the ones who stay, they see how good your heart is." From behind the building's glass doors, high above them, a tall man in a dark suit paused mid-conversation, phone still pressed to his ear, his eyes fixed on the woman and child comforting his son. And in that quiet, rainy morning, something shifted. Arianna didn't look like anyone who belonged in front of the Whitmore Tower. Her jeans were damp at the knees from the puddles she had dodged, and her sneakers, though clean, had thinned soles. Her sweater clung to her arms from the misty air, and the gray scarf around her neck was more practical than stylish. But none of that mattered in the moment, not when there was a little boy beside her with trembling fingers and a heart full of questions no child should carry alone. Asher Whitmore wiped his face roughly with the tissue she'd given him. The monogram on his blazer sleeve caught her eye again. A.W. in gold embroidery, elegant and unmistakable. "You know," Arianna said gently, rocking Luna's stroller a little to keep her baby calm when my daughter gets upset, "I don't always have the perfect words, but I try to be there anyway. Sometimes people don't need fixing, they just need someone to sit beside them while things hurt." Asher blinked, then glanced at Luna. The baby gave him a wide, gummy smile, delighted by his sad face, as if she sensed that he needed to see something good. "She's small," he said softly. "She is." Arianna agreed, but strong. "You'd be amazed what small people can survive." There was a long silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Arianna had learned to make peace with quiet. It was where most truth lived. Asher finally asked, "Do you think moms stop loving people when they leave?" The question hit her like a stone. She looked away for a beat, collecting herself. Her own mother had vanished when Arianna was 12. No goodbyes, no explanations, just a note on the kitchen table that read, "I can't do this anymore." "I think," she began slowly, "sometimes moms get lost, not because they want to leave you, but because they're running from something inside themselves. But no real love doesn't stop. It can go quiet. It can get buried under hurt or fear, but I think the love stays." Asher didn't say anything, but his fingers relaxed on the tissue. Luna cooed again, and he leaned over, peeking into the stroller. She wiggled with delight. "She likes you." Arianna smiled. "Maybe it's because I'm sad," he said. "Babies can tell things. They really can," she whispered, unbeknownst to them both, behind the massive floor-to-ceiling windows 20 stories above. Declan Whitmore stood like a statue. His office was sleek and modern charcoal gray walls, steel fixtures, and a view of the Detroit skyline that people paid millions to access. But right now, all Declan could see was his son sitting on a bench, talking to a stranger, a young woman, with a baby. He didn't recognize her, not an employee, not one of Asher's teachers or therapists. But she was doing something none of them had managed to do for weeks. Asher was talking, laughing, even when the baby made a high-pitched sound like a squeaky toy. Declan hadn't heard his son's laugh in, God, maybe a month. He ended the call he'd been on without saying goodbye, set the phone on the windowsill, and loosened his tie. His mind was moving faster than his hands. Who was she? Why was she here? And how had she gotten through to Asher in 5 minutes when professionals with PhDs had failed in 5 sessions? Declan pressed the elevator button. On the ground floor, Arianna was just beginning to glance back at the lobby entrance, wondering if she should still try to ask about the job. But Asher spoke again. "Do you need a job?" he asked, almost shyly. She blinked. "Yes, I do. Are you going to work in that building I was hoping to? They might not even be hiring anymore, but I figured it was worth a try. My dad owns it," he said, almost like he didn't want her to believe it. She smiled softly. "That's a pretty big deal." He nodded. He's smart, he works a lot, everyone listens to him. But he doesn't know what to say when I'm sad." Arianna felt that ache again, low and familiar. It wasn't just about parents and children, it was about anyone who had ever wanted to be seen for their pain, not just their behavior. "I think being strong like your dad means learning how to talk about hard things," she said. "And sometimes, even strong people forget how." The glass doors behind them slid open. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out, his eyes scanning the scene. He had the kind of posture that said authority without trying broad-shouldered, pressed collar, expensive shoes that made no sound on concrete. But there was a slight stiffness in his walk, a hesitation that betrayed something deeper. "Dad," Asher said, his voice cautious. Declan gave a tight smile. "Hey, buddy." Arianna stood slowly, not wanting to intrude but not willing to walk away yet. "This is Arianna," Asher said before his father could speak. "And Luna. She helped me." Declan's gaze shifted to her. His eyes were the same shade of stormy gray as the building's glass exterior, piercing, unreadable. "Thank you," he said, but it didn't sound like a dismissal, more like an opening. Arianna swallowed. "Of course. He just seemed like he needed a little company." "He does," Declan said, "more than I realized." There was an awkward pause, the kind that stands between two people from entirely different worlds who don't know what comes next. Asher broke it. "She's looking for a job." "Dad?" "Is that so?" Declan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Arianna smiled awkwardly, brushing a strand of damp hair behind her ear. "I was actually coming here to ask about a receptionist position, but, well, I got a little sidetracked." Declan nodded slowly, as if considering a thought far bigger than her resume. "Would you mind stepping inside for a minute? I'd like to speak with you. Asher can wait in the lobby." Arianna hesitated. Asher looked up at her, panic flickering in his expression. "You're not leaving." "Right." She knelt beside him again, her hand gently resting on his. "I'll be right there." "Okay, I'm not going anywhere." He nodded slowly. As she followed Declan into the marble-floored lobby, her heart raced. She didn't know what kind of conversation she was about to have with the most powerful man she'd ever met. But something inside her, some quiet intuition, told her that the moment she stopped to sit beside a crying boy had just rewritten the course of her entire life. Declan Whitmore had built his empire on knowing when to take risks and when to cut losses. That philosophy had served him well in business. At 43, he was the co-founder and CEO of Whitmore and Gray Capital, one of the most influential financial firms in the Midwest. His name was on the building, on investor panels, on magazine covers. He moved markets with a phone call and negotiated hostile takeovers before breakfast. But no market analysis or quarterly projection had prepared him for the look in his son's eyes, lately vacant, detached, as if something essential had gone missing from the boy's soul. And that morning, standing in the marble foyer of his own building, Declan watched the young woman Arianna with new eyes. She wasn't polished. She didn't wear designer anything. Her shoes squeaked, and her sweater had a stitched patch on the sleeve. She looked like someone surviving on willpower. And yet, Asher had smiled at her, not just a polite smile, a real one, the kind Declan hadn't seen since before Claire left. He held the door open as Arianna pushed the stroller inside, her face composed but alert, as if every step into the building could be a trap. Luna let out a soft sigh, nuzzling her cheek against her blanket. "You sure you want to do this? Now?" Arianna asked, her voice cautious. Declan glanced down at her, surprised by the question. "You're asking if I want to talk to the person who just did in 20 minutes what I haven't done in 3 weeks?" He replied. "Yes, Ms. Fields. I'd like to talk. Right now." She nodded, lips pressing into a small, wary line. They entered the side conference room, less intimidating than the top-floor boardrooms, but still gleaming with polished oak, glass partitions, and chrome accents. Arianna parked the stroller gently in the corner and took the seat across from him. Declan sat down, removed his watch, and rolled up his sleeves, as if to signal that this wasn't going to be some formal interview. "I'm not entirely sure what to say," he admitted. "Then maybe I can go first," she said. "I didn't mean to interfere. I was just your son, looked like he needed a moment, and I've had a few of those myself." Her tone was soft but firm, grounded. "What kind of work are you looking for?" he asked. "Anything, really," she replied. "I've done front desk work before. I clean at a banquet hall at night. I'm good with people, and I learn fast." He watched her closely. Her fingers were slender but calloused. Her nails were trimmed clean but unpolished. There was no makeup on her face, but her skin glowed with a kind of weary grace. Everything about her radiated effort, the kind you don't brag about, the kind that just gets you through another day. "You said your daughter's name is Luna." Arianna smiled. "Yeah, she's my moon. Showed up in the middle of a really dark year." Declan nodded, then leaned forward slightly. "And Asher. He just started 3rd grade at Hawthorne Prep. Bright kid. Too bright. Maybe. Claire, his mother, was very invested in keeping everything perfect. She was always one for structure, schedules, tutors." He paused. "She left a few weeks ago. Said she needed space to find herself. She took her passport and half the art collection, left the kid." Arianna flinched slightly, not from shock, but recognition. "I'm sorry. Don't be. I'm not telling you that for sympathy," he said. "I'm telling you because I've had every expert possible in the last month try to talk to Asher. Child therapists, behavioral coaches, nothing. He sits through sessions like he's on trial. Then, today, he sits on a bench and tells a stranger everything. Kids don't trust people who talk at them," Arianna said quietly. "They trust people who sit beside them and stay quiet until they're ready." That line made Declan pause. He picked up a sleek pen from the conference table, rolling it between his fingers. "You said you're looking for work," he said again, this time slower. "But I don't think front desk jobs are your calling. Not right now." She tilted her head, wary again. "What do you mean I need someone to be with Asher after school? Not a nanny. He's too proud for that. Not a therapist, he won't open up. He needs someone who can just be there, someone who sees him without trying to fix him." Arianna was quiet for a long time. "And you'd hire someone you just met this morning?" she asked finally. "Someone you saw talking to your kid on a bench outside." Declan exhaled. "I've hired CFOs with Harvard MBAs who failed to spot a $3 million discrepancy. I've promoted associates who turned toxic within 6 months. People look good on paper all the time. Ms. Fields, you can't fake what you did out there. You listened to my son like he mattered. I didn't know who he was," she admitted. "Exactly. Which means you weren't trying to impress anyone. That's the most honest thing I've seen in this building in a long time." Arianna glanced down at Luna, who was now asleep in the stroller, thumb tucked into her fist. "What would this Position looked like, she asked cautiously. After school, a few hours, homework, talking, maybe help him keep his violin practice going. He used to love that. You'd have help with Luna, my housekeeper. Ms. Jolene practically raised 3 boys of her own. You'd have flexibility and time off if needed, and, if it works out, it could become a long-term arrangement. Arianna blinked. I'm not a licensed counselor. I'm not asking for one. She looked at the window. The sun was beginning to break through the gray, casting soft light against the far wall. I just wanted a job, she said, not to walk into someone else's family mess. Declan's voice lowered. Then let me put it this way. I'm not asking you to fix him. I'm asking you to stay until I learn how. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. Finally, Arianna nodded once. I'll try. For a week. A trial run. That's all I ask. She stood, smoothing her jeans, then looked down at Luna with a faint smile. Guess we're going to a new place, Little Moon. Declan stood too, and for the first time in a long while, his voice held something warm. Let's go home then. The Blacktown car glided quietly through the upscale Westbridge neighborhood. The ride so smooth Arianna barely noticed the motion. Her palms, though, were sweating. Luna had drifted into another nap. Snuggled in the car seat Declan had personally insisted the driver install. From the front passenger seat, Declan spoke occasionally to the driver, but mostly he remained quiet, his gaze distant, almost unreadable. Arianna glanced at him once, then quickly looked away. She was still trying to process what had happened in that glass-walled conference room. She had walked into the building with a half-broken stroller and a vague hope of finding receptionist work, and now, somehow, she was being escorted to a mansion she'd only ever seen in glossy real estate inserts, with a trial job offer to help the son of the man whose name was on the skyline. What are you doing, Arianna? She asked herself. What if this is a setup, a test? What if it's temporary and you start caring too much? Her fingers curled around Luna's small socks. But then she thought of Asher's face on the bench. His red eyes, his brave voice, the way he clutched that tissue like it was the only thing tethering him to earth. She hadn't fixed anything, but maybe she'd stayed long enough to make something less broken. The Whitmore estate was quieter than Arianna expected. Not cold, exactly, but controlled, orderly. The tall iron gate opened automatically as they approached, and the winding driveway curved through manicured hedges and a lawn too perfect to be real. The house itself was a modern colonial grand, symmetrical, intimidating in size but somehow not gaudy. The kind of house that whispered power rather than shouted it. Asher was already waiting on the front steps. His blazer was gone, replaced with a soft navy hoodie, and he waved awkwardly when he saw them. A woman stepped outside behind him, petite, maybe in her late 50s, with gray-streaked curls pulled into a loose bun and a posture that told Arianna she had seen everything and survived most of it. This is Ms. Jolene, Declan said as he helped Arianna out of the car. Ms. Jolene gave Luna a long, delighted look. Well now, she said warmly, a baby with cheeks like peaches. What's her name? Sweetheart Luna, Arianna said, adjusting the car seat strap and lifting her daughter carefully into her arms. Well, Luna, Ms. Jolene cooed, you just made my day. Her voice was smooth, her hands gentle but efficient as she guided them inside. The foyer was marble, but not shiny. The staircase curved like a ribbon, leading up into light. Artwork hung on the walls, but it was abstract blues, silvers, clean lines, nothing pretentious, just expensive peace. Asher trailed beside them. "I can show her my room." "Right." Dad, Declan nodded. "Yes, but slowly." Arianna smiled. "We're following your lead, kiddo." Asher's room was brighter than she expected. No stiff designer themes, just bookshelves crammed with astronomy encyclopedias, posters of planets, and a small telescope by the window. "This is Luna," Asher said shyly, showing her the mobile of stars above his bed. "She probably likes shiny things." Luna gave a gurgling squeal in agreement. For a while, they sat together on the rug, flipping through a picture book about galaxies. Arianna didn't press. She let Asher lead. Meanwhile, in the hallway, just outside the door, Declan stood silently, watching. He wasn't sure how he felt. Part of him was stunned that this girl, this woman, was somehow shifting the temperature of the entire house by simply being present. Another part of him was quietly terrified. Because if it worked, if Asher truly started to open again, it would only underline how deeply Declan had failed. "Ms." Jolene appeared beside him with a mug of coffee. "She's good," she said, not asking. "She is," Declan admitted. "Reminds me of my niece. Tough as concrete, but gentle where it matters." He glanced at her. "You think this is a mistake, I think, Ms." Jolene replied. "That grief makes strange allies. You two don't know each other, but the boy took to her like a duck to water. And that baby, she's going to soften every room they walk into." Declan took the coffee and sipped. The warmth ground in him. Dinner that night was simple: grilled chicken, steamed rice, and roasted vegetables. Arianna offered to help cook, but Ms. Jolene waved her off. "You're on your first day," she said. "Sit, breathe." At the long dining table, Declan took his usual seat at the head. Asher surprised everyone by pulling out a chair for Arianna. They ate slowly. Conversation wasn't forced. At one point, Luna squealed with joy as she knocked over a soft plastic cup. Asher laughed, then covered his mouth, surprised by the sound. Declan looked at him and smiled. "You can laugh, Ash. It's okay." Asher nodded, but his eyes darted to Arianna. She simply nodded too and kept eating. After dinner, Declan walked them out to the front porch. "You handled today well," he said, his voice lower, more personal now. "I was just being me." Arianna replied. "Exactly," he said. "That's why it worked." She looked out at the darkening sky, then down at Luna, who was nuzzled against her chest. "I'm not used to places like this," she said. "People don't usually open doors like that for someone like me." Declan leaned against the porch column. "And people like me don't usually ask for help." They stood there for a long moment in the cool air, the sound of autumn leaves rustling across the stone driveway. "I'm still not sure what you see in me," Arianna finally said. He didn't hesitate. "I saw my son smile, that night, back in her apartment." Arianna tucked Luna into the portable bassinet beside the couch. The heat was off again. The hallway light flickered like it always did. The cracked window still whistled when the wind blew, but for the first time in months, her mind didn't race with fear as she lay down. Instead, she thought of Asher's eyes lighting up at the word galaxy. She thought of the weight in Declan's voice when he said, "I saw my son smile." She thought of the quiet in that house that wasn't cold, but waiting, and, for a single moment, she let herself hope that this might be more than a trial. It might be a beginning. It had been 4 days since the trial began, 4 afternoons of laughter and telescope lessons, 4 evenings where Asher's footsteps echoed a little louder through the Whitmore house. 4 mornings where Arianna woke up earlier than she needed to, not out of obligation, but something closer to anticipation. She still worked her late-night cleaning shifts at the event hall downtown, but somehow, exhaustion felt different now, the kind that followed meaning, not just survival. Luna had settled in, too. Ms. Jolene had turned a quiet sunroom into a nursery nook complete with a folding bassinet, a box of donated toys, and soft rugs that Arianna never would have dared to buy. Declan had made no big declarations, just quiet adjustments, installing a baby monitor, upgrading the security code, asking if she liked oat milk for her coffee. Everything in the house felt tentative, as if they were all standing on opposite banks of a river, unsure if the bridge between them could hold. On Friday afternoon, the rain returned. It came in quiet sheets, trailing down the tall windows of the Whitmore living room like streaks of old tears. Arianna sat cross-legged on the floor with Asher, who was building a model of Saturn from a kit he'd found in his closet. Luna babbled beside them, chewing on a rubber star. "You think Saturn's lonely?" Asher asked. She looked up from sorting the ring pieces. "Why would you say that?" He shrugged. "It's beautiful and huge, but it's kind of far from everything else." Arianna thought for a moment. Maybe it is, but being far away doesn't mean you're forgotten. Sometimes people just don't know how to get closer. Asher didn't respond, but he leaned closer to her elbow. From the hallway, Declan watched the scene unfold, quietly, unnoticed, his coffee in hand. Later that evening, once Asher had gone to his room, Declan asked Arianna to meet him in his study. It was the first time she'd been in that room. Dark bookshelves lined the walls, filled with thick volumes and investment memoirs. The fireplace glowed gently, more decorative than necessary, but it cast a golden warmth that softened the room's sharp corners. Arianna sat on the edge of the leather chair, unsure what to expect. "Tea," Declan offered. She blinked. "I'm okay, thanks." He poured himself a cup anyway, then sat opposite her, elbows resting on his knees. "I've been watching the way Asher responds to you," he said slowly. "It's different. Not just because you're kind to him, but because you meet him where he is. I don't know if I'm doing it right," she admitted. "Half the time, I'm just following his lead." "That's the point," Declan said. "You're not leading with control. You're leading with trust." He leaned back. "I've been thinking about making this arrangement permanent." Arianna's breath caught. "Permanent. I want to offer you a formal position. Full-time, not as a nanny, and not as a therapist, but as someone essential to his growth, his grounding, whatever title fits that. We'll figure it out." Her thoughts flooded. "I appreciate that, I really do, but I'm not sure this is sustainable. I still have my job at the event hall, and Luna, she'll need more as she grows. Daycare, diapers, doctors. You wouldn't have to worry about that," Declan said evenly. "The position would come with a salary, competitive, health benefits, a relocation package if you'd rather live closer. I've already spoken with Ms. Jolene about transitioning the sunroom permanently. Or," he hesitated, "or what she asked. There's a guest house on the back of the property." Declan continued. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, private entrance. It's furnished and unoccupied. Arianna blinked. You want us to live here if you're open to it. You'd have full independence. I'm not looking to own your time just to offer stability in return for something I clearly can't buy connection. She stood quietly, pacing to the edge of the rug. She stared at the fire. I didn't come here looking for a miracle. She said, I came because my daughter needed formula and I needed a paycheck. This has all been unexpected. I know, Declan said. I don't want to become someone your son gets attached to just to have me vanish the way others have. Then don't vanish, he said. Arianna turned to face him. You say that like it's simple, like history doesn't repeat itself. He stepped closer, stopping just short of arm's reach. We can't change how they've been hurt, but we can decide how we show up tomorrow and the next day, and the next. That night, after returning to her apartment, Arianna sat in silence long after Luna fell asleep. She stared at the flickering ceiling light, her thoughts a carousel. Was she being reckless for even considering this? Or brave? What if this ended in disaster? Like Trey? Like her mother? Like every time someone told her, you're exactly what we need, until she wasn't. But then she remembered Asher's hand on her shoulder that afternoon, and the way he had said, you make the silence feel less scary. The next morning, she returned to the estate early. Declan was already in the study, dressed down for a Saturday in jeans and a charcoal pullover. He looked up as she entered. I've thought about your offer, Arianna said, Luna propped on her hip. And I have one condition. He raised an eyebrow. Only one, she smiled faintly. I want Asher to know that I'm not here forever, but that I won't disappear without telling him why. Declan nodded. That's fair, and I'll match it. I won't let this turn into dependency. He needs presence, not illusion. Arianna shifted Luna's weight, exhaled slowly. Then I'm in, she said. Let's build something honest. From the second-floor window. Asher watched them in the foyer, his dad and Arianna, talking like grown-ups who didn't shout. He reached for his telescope and adjusted it toward the morning sun, even though he knew you weren't supposed to look directly at it. But it was warm through the glass, and for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel so far away. The guest house sat beneath a canopy of old elms, just far enough from the main mansion to feel like a separate world, yet close enough that Asher could sprint there barefoot in under a minute, something he did now almost daily. It had been just over a week since Arianna and Luna moved in, and though Arianna had woken up in many strange places over the years, a friend's couch, a shelter cot, a motel with flickering lights, this was the first time she'd woken to birdsong and silence instead of sirens or shouting. The cottage-style space was simple: 2 bedrooms, wood floors, a small kitchen with real counter space, but the windows opened without sticking. The heating worked, and someone had even left a vase of lilies on the breakfast bar. Ms. Jolene, no doubt. Luna stirred in her bassinet just as the sun cracked across the blinds. Arianna stood by the sink, sipping warm coffee from a real ceramic mug, watching steam curl into the light. No plastic lids, no rushing, just a morning that didn't start with panic. She didn't quite trust it yet. By mid-morning, Asher appeared, tapping gently on the screen door. You guys awake? He asked, even though he was already grinning. Arianna opened the door. Come on in. We were just talking about the moon. We were Asher, lit up. Which one? Arianna raised a brow. There's more than one. Oh, yeah. There are like hundreds in the solar system. Most of the cool planets have tons. Luna's lucky she got named after the Earth one. That's the original. He knelt beside the baby, who squealed and grabbed his hoodie string like it was a prize. "She loves you," Arianna said. "She likes my voice," Asher replied. "And I don't talk to her like she's stupid." Arianna smiled at that. Declan arrived at the guest house around lunchtime, holding a grocery bag in one arm and a folder tucked under the other. "I come bearing hummus and official paperwork," he said. "You know how to win a woman's heart," Arianna replied dryly, taking the bag. They sat around the small kitchen table, Asher bouncing Luna gently in her rocker beside them. Declan laid out a formal contract, compensation details, vacation days, boundaries around overnight stays, confidentiality clauses. "I've added a childcare stipend for Luna," he said, "and a clause for continued education if you want to go back to school." Arianna's breath caught. "You didn't have to do that." "I didn't," he agreed, "but it's the right thing. You're contributing to this household in a way I can't quantify on a W-2. She scanned the pages carefully, asking pointed questions about taxes, termination terms, housing rights. Declan answered them all without flinching. When she reached the signature line, she looked up. "This isn't just a job anymore, is it?" Declan leaned back. "No, it's not." She signed. That evening, they celebrated in the way quiet people do, simply. Asher picked a movie. Ms. Jolene baked something that smelled like cinnamon and safety. Luna fell asleep mid-laugh, and Arianna sat on the edge of a large sectional sofa beside Declan, watching his son slowly lean his head onto her shoulder. Declan didn't say a word, but the look he gave her across the room said everything. Later that night, as she tucked Luna into her crib and pulled the soft blanket over her tiny feet, Arianna whispered a small truth into the darkness. "I don't know how long this will last," she said, "but right now, it's good, and you deserve good, my little moon." Then, with a deep breath, she allowed herself to believe in the present moment. Across the yard, Declan stood at the upper window of his home office. He could see the light still on in the guest house, a faint golden glow through the trees. His house had always been too quiet. After Claire left, the silence had gotten worse. Even Asher's footsteps used to sound distant, like echoes in a hotel no one lived in. Now, there were soft giggles through the hall, music playing during dishes, Arianna humming as she moved through the kitchen, Luna babbling. He wasn't naive. He knew things could change in a moment. The world was made of uncertain ground, but tonight there was warmth on both sides of the lawn, and for the first time in a very long time, Declan felt the weight on his chest ease not all the way, but enough to exhale. But peace, Arianna would later learn, is rarely left undisturbed for long. The knock came on a Tuesday. Not a polite knock, either. It was sharp, assertive, the kind of knock that didn't ask it announced. Arianna looked up from the floor of the guest house where she was helping Asher glue tiny solar panels onto a cardboard Mars rover. Luna was napping in the crib, one chubby arm tossed over her head. Asher froze mid-glue, his body going still in that strange way children do when they sense a storm they can't see. Then came the voice. "Declan." It was a woman's voice, clipped, elegant, laced with irritation and something colder entitlement. Arianna stood slowly, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Asher sat back on his heels and looked toward the front door. "Who's that?" she asked quietly. Asher didn't answer. He just stared. Across the lawn, on the main house's front porch, stood a woman Arianna had only seen in old photos. Tall, blonde, perfectly composed in a beige trench coat and ankle boots that cost more than Arianna's rent 6 months ago. Her lipstick was immaculate. Her eyes, hard. Claire Whitmore, Declan's ex-wife, Asher's mother. Declan met her at the front steps, his expression unreadable. "You're not supposed to be here," he said flatly. "I didn't come to ask permission," Claire replied, brushing invisible dust off her sleeve. "I came to see my son. You left without a word for 3 weeks. I left a note." "A note?" Declan's voice dropped. "You vanished. No phone calls. No contact. You walked out of this house and off the map." Claire gave a thin, humorless smile. "I needed time, clarity, and apparently you replaced me with a cleaning girl." Declan's jaw tightened. "She's not a cleaning girl. She's the reason Asher has stopped waking up crying." Claire arched a brow. "You let some stranger live on our property and play stepmother while I'm gone. She's not playing anything. She's showing up something you walked away from." The two of them stood frozen, the air between them sharp and brittle. Claire crossed her arms. "I want to see him." "He's busy," Declan said. Claire's voice lowered. "Dangerous now." "He's my son." "Then act like it," Declan snapped. Inside the guest house, Arianna didn't move. She'd stepped away from the front window, careful not to let Luna wake, careful not to let Asher sense her tension. But it radiated from him regardless, his eyes darting, shoulders hunched, fingers clenched around the corner of the Mars rover. "Hey," Arianna said softly, kneeling down beside him. "You're safe here." "She yells," he whispered. "Not at you," she replied gently. "She'll be mad I like it here. You're allowed to feel safe with people who show up." Asher looked at her, wide-eyed. "Are you gonna leave if she tells you to?" Arianna paused, her heart stuttering. "No," she said quietly. "Not unless you or your dad ask me to. Not unless it stops feeling safe for Luna." Asher looked at the model rover. "She doesn't even know I finished my music project." "She will," Arianna replied. "If she wants to, if she asks." 30 minutes later, there was another knock, this one hesitant. Arianna opened the door to find Declan, his shoulders stiff, his jaw set. "She wants to see him," he said, "but only if he agrees." Asher stood just behind her, arms crossed, eyes shadowed. "I don't want to talk to her today," he said without hesitation. Declan nodded. "Okay." And just like that, the decision was respected. No guilt trip, no pressure. Claire didn't take it well. Arianna watched from a side window as Claire stalked back to her sleek black car, her heels clicking like accusations across the driveway. She didn't even glance back, but something lingered behind her. Not just her perfume, a presence, a fracture. That night, after dinner, Arianna stood in the kitchen of the guest house, washing dishes while Luna played in a soft playpen nearby. Asher sat at the table, drawing stars on construction paper. "Why'd she come back?" he asked suddenly. Arianna kept her hands in the warm water, her voice calm. "Maybe she missed you. Then why'd she leave? I don't know." Asher paused, crayon suspended midair. "Do you think I'm hard to love?" The question broke her. She dried her hands and walked over, kneeling beside him. "I think you are brave and smart and complicated," she said, and those things don't make you hard to love. They make you worth loving by the right people. Asher looked at her, blinking slowly. She didn't even say my name. Arianna swallowed hard. Some people don't know how to carry love well. That doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means they're still learning. He leaned forward, suddenly wrapping his arms around her shoulders. I don't want you to leave, he whispered. She held him tightly. I'm here, she said. You don't have to say it every time. I'm still here. Later that night, Declan came by after Asher had fallen asleep. He stood in the entryway, a strange tension in his posture. I owe you an apology, he said. For what? For letting her shake the ground after you've worked so hard to steady it. Arianna shook her head. You can't control who knocks on your door. I didn't mean literally, he said with a small smile. She softened. You're not responsible for her choices. He hesitated. I'm afraid she's going to make a mess again, and I don't want you or Luna caught in that crossfire. Arianna crossed her arms. Then be clear with her, with Asher, with me. Declan nodded. I'm trying. You're allowed to be scared, she added. Just don't run. His eyes met hers, something quiet flickering there. Not romance, not yet. Something older. Mutual weariness, mutual hope. Thanks for staying, he said. Thanks for letting me. Outside, the trees rustled in the wind. Inside, the baby slept. The boy finally breathed deeper, and the woman who had always felt like a visitor was starting to feel like someone who belonged. It happened during a thunderstorm, the kind that doesn't announce itself with sprinkles or wind, but crashes open the sky like it's splitting something sacred. Thunder rolled through the Whitmore estate as if the earth itself was groaning. Rain slammed the windows of the guest house, and the power flickered twice before Arianna found the emergency lantern in the closet. Luna was already asleep, miraculously immune to nature's tantrums. Asher wasn't. He'd been jittery all afternoon ever since Ms. Jolene mentioned that his mother had called again. Claire hadn't asked to speak to him directly, but the message had landed anyway. Arianna found Asher in the hallway outside the guest house bathroom, knees pulled up to his chest, his thin arms wrapped tightly around them. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. She said she wants to try again, he whispered when Arianna crouched beside him. She waited. I don't want to try again, he added. Does that make me bad? No, she said softly. That makes you honest. She said I'm shutting her out. He added, but I didn't even shut the door. She just left. Arianna sat beside him, back to the wall. Asher, you're allowed to have boundaries. You're allowed to feel hurt. None of that makes you unkind. He covered his ears as another crash of thunder hit, but his eyes stayed open, wide, shiny. I used to have nightmares, he whispered, but now I don't. Not when I sleep here. Arianna nodded. Do you think it's okay if I just don't forgive her yet? She turned toward him fully. Yes, forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a door you open slowly, and only when you're ready. Asher tilted his head into her side, seeking warmth without asking. And she stayed with him. As the rain fell, as the house creaked, as the storm refused to pass, Declan arrived late. He'd been stuck in traffic after an emergency board meeting and was soaked from running up the stone path. He knocked once before letting himself into the guest house. Arianna met him at the door, barefoot and tired. I think he had a panic attack, she said softly, It was short, but it hit him hard. Declan swore under his breath, stepping past her toward Asher's room, but Arianna touched his arm. "Don't rush in. He's calm now. He's not ready to talk." Declan exhaled. "I hate how powerless this makes me feel," he said. "I know." He looked around the dim room, lit only by the glow of the lantern. "You have this presence," he said. "It fills the spaces where things used to echo." Arianna half smiled. "I've spent a lot of time in echoey places." Declan stared at her, his face unreadable for a moment. Then he sat down on the edge of the chair near Luna's crib. "My ex-wife once told me I was emotionally unavailable," he said, "that I only knew how to provide, not how to connect." Arianna didn't reply. He continued anyway. I believed her, so I doubled down. I worked longer hours. I booked vacations instead of conversations. I kept thinking that if I just fixed the house, fixed the money, fixed the surface, the inside would follow. And it didn't. Arianna said gently, "No." It cracked deeper. He looked up at her, suddenly unguarded. "You've known Asher for 2 weeks, and he trusts you more than anyone in this house." She folded her arms across her chest, unsure what to do with the compliment. "I didn't try to fix him," she said quietly. "I just stayed. That's all he ever wanted." As they spoke, Luna stirred, then whimpered. Arianna crossed the room to pick her up, holding her gently against her chest. "She's safe with you," Declan said, his voice low. "I hope so. You're safe." The word hung in the room like something fragile. Arianna turned toward him, Luna tucked under her chin. "Declan, I need to say something," she said, "and I don't want you to misread it. Go on. I'm here because your son needs me, and because I care deeply for him, for Luna, for what this place is trying to become. But if Claire starts pulling him apart again, I won't stay and watch." His jaw tightened. "You think I'd let that happen? I think you love him. But I also think guilt makes people give up their own power. I won't let Asher be collateral damage in someone else's identity crisis." Declan was silent for a long beat. Then he said, "Neither will I." Arianna nodded. "Then we're on the same page." The next morning, after the storm cleared, Asher tiptoed into the kitchen while Arianna was making pancakes. He didn't say anything at first, just watched her flip batter onto the griddle. Finally, he asked, "Did I ruin everything last night?" She turned to him slowly. "No," she said. "You revealed something." "What?" "That you're not a robot, that you feel things deeply, that you trust someone enough to break a little in front of them." He looked at her with a hint of hope. "And that's okay." She leaned down, eye to eye. "It's not just okay, Asher, it's brave." That afternoon, as Declan passed Arianna on the porch, he stopped and said something unexpected. "You know what I realized? What you're the only one here who doesn't expect anything from Asher. No grades, no apologies, no performance. I just want him to know he's enough." Declan looked out at the yard. "You've given him permission to be soft in a world that tried to make him hard." Arianna looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I just wish someone had done that for me." He turned to her, but she was already stepping inside. The storm had passed, but its echoes would stay in the walls, reminding them all sometimes the loudest truths come after the quietest breakdowns. The rain was gone, but something heavier lingered. Arianna could feel it in her chest like a slow bruise. The kind of ache that doesn't scream, just hums under the surface, quiet, steady, waiting. She tried to shake it off as she packed Luna's diaper bag that morning, but her hands felt slower, her breath tighter. In the guest house kitchen, the silence pressed in, interrupted only by the gentle hum of the fridge and Luna's babbling. Asher was still asleep. Declan had left early for a meeting, texting a simple, "Back by 3. Let me know if you need anything." The words were thoughtful, but the space around them was stretching again. Since Claire's return, a quiet unease had crept back into the estate. Arianna had grown up with that kind of quiet. She recognized it immediately. Around noon, she loaded Luna into the stroller and walked toward the edge of the estate, where the tree line curved into a small nature trail. She wasn't running away, not really, but she needed air, space. Trees didn't talk behind your back. She called her sister, Jasmine, for the first time in weeks. "Still playing house with rich people?" Jasmine answered, half laughing, half accusing. Arianna sighed. "I'm not playing anything." Jasmine scoffed. "Don't tell me you're getting attached." There it was, the word Arianna had been avoiding. Attached. "I care about the boy," she said, "and his dad. They're trying. They're damaged." Jasmine snapped. "You don't fix rich people's guilt. You just carry it until it crushes you." Arianna was quiet. Jasmine continued. "You really think he'd keep you round if things went south with his kid? You're a convenience, a temporary fix. You always walk into other people's messes thinking it's a rescue mission." "No," Arianna said softly. "Sometimes I stay in the mess because someone in there deserves not to be left behind." Jasmine went silent. Then, "And who's staying for you?" The question landed hard. "I don't know," Arianna admitted. "Maybe me." When she returned to the guest house, Asher was curled up on the porch steps, reading a book. He looked up as she approached. "Where'd you go for a walk?" she said. "Sometimes when my brain gets too loud, I go find trees. Did the trees help?" She smiled. "They always do." Asher stood and walked beside her inside. "Dad was looking for you earlier," he said. "I think something happened." "What do you mean?" "He got quiet, like super quiet. Then he left again. An hour later, Declan returned. His car pulled up fast, wheels crunching against the gravel with a little too much force. Arianna stepped outside, Luna in her arms. Just as he exited the driver's side, his face was pale, his jaw set. She didn't speak at first, just watched him approach. Finally, he said, "Claire filed for partial custody." Arianna's chest tightened. Of Asher, Declan nodded. "She's claiming emotional alienation, that I'm turning Asher against her, but she's the one who I know." He interrupted, "And legally, none of it will hold, but it means hearings, mediation, disruption." He paused. "She's requesting a court-appointed therapist to evaluate the home environment." Arianna felt something drop inside her. "Which means they'll be looking at me. They'll look at everything," Declan said. "The setup, your role, my choices, the way Asher responds to us." "And Claire?" she asked. "She'll weaponize whatever she can," he said bitterly. "Including your presence here." Arianna rocked Luna slowly, her mind spiraling. "I can step back," she said. Declan's head snapped up. "No, if it helps protect Asher." "No," he repeated, firmer this time. "If we cave to her manipulation, we teach him that safety isn't real, that comfort is conditional. That's not the lesson I want him to learn." Arianna looked down at Luna, who was fast asleep on her chest. She whispered, more to herself than to Declan, "I just can't be the one who leaves again." He moved closer, his voice low but steady. "You're not her, Arianna." Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back. "I've had to leave before. I've had to walk away from things I wanted to keep because survival said I couldn't afford them." "This isn't survival anymore," Declan said. "It's healing, and I need you to believe you deserve that." Arianna shook her head. "Belief doesn't come easy." He nodded, then let it come slowly. "But stay." That night, Asher asked to sleep on the couch in the guest house. "I don't like my room tonight," he said. "It smells like lawyers." Arianna tucked him in with Luna's extra blanket. "Do you think they'll make me go live with her?" "I don't know what they'll try," she said honestly. "But I do know you're allowed to say what you feel, and you're not alone." He looked at her through the dim light. "Promise." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "As long as you want me here. I'm not going anywhere." After he fell asleep, Arianna sat in the armchair beside Luna's crib. She stared out the window. Beyond the trees, beyond the gates, the city lights blinked in the distance. She remembered her mother's back as she walked out the door. Trey's voicemail that never came. The nights she'd sat in shelters, repeating the words, "This won't be the end," under her breath. And now she was here. Not because someone saved her, but because when someone else was breaking, she had chosen to stay. Even if it broke her a little too. The science fair was held in the glass atrium of Hawthorne Prep, a place that smelled like polished ambition and seasonal flowers. Arianna arrived early with Luna on her hip and a paper folder of Asher's cue cards tucked into her bag. Her hands trembled a little, not from nerves for herself, but for the boy she'd grown to love like blood. Asher had worked for weeks on his project, a functioning volcano model wired with LED lights and a hidden speaker that played rumbling sounds during the eruption. He'd named it Mount Regrowth. "It's not about blowing up," he told Arianna. "It's about starting again after the lava cools." He didn't know how deeply that metaphor hit her. Arianna adjusted Luna's jacket and walked with purpose through the hallway, lined with pastel art projects and private school confidence. She caught glimpses of gold-trimmed backpacks, parents in tailored blazers, and students with last names that showed up on buildings. She felt the familiar twinge "you don't belong here," but ignored it like she'd learned to do. Because today wasn't about her. Asher stood near his table, dressed in his navy blazer and khakis. His shoes shined by Ms. Jolene that morning. But his hands tugged nervously at the hem of his shirt. When he saw Arianna and Luna, something in his posture relaxed. "You came early," he said. "Of course we did." She smiled. "Wouldn't miss it for anything." Luna babbled and reached for him. He let her grab his finger, then pointed toward his volcano. "She's gonna like the rumble sound. Luna or me, both." He grinned. Arianna crouched down. "Remember what we talked about. Speak slow, pause between points, and don't rush to the volcano part. Make them care about the mountain first." He nodded, repeating it like a mantra. Parents and judges began to fill the room. Declan arrived just before Asher's presentation began. He stood across the space, away from the tables, still dressed in his gray suit from a morning meeting. But his eyes never left his son. Arianna caught his glance and gave him a nod. His return nod was small, almost reverent. Then Asher stood behind his table and cleared his throat. The chatter hushed. "My name is Asher Whitmore," he began, voice slightly shaky but clear. "And my project is about how things fall apart and how they grow back stronger." He went on to explain tectonic movement, lava flow, and cooling crust. But it wasn't the science that caught people's attention. It was the last line of his presentation. Sometimes when things break, you don't fix them back the same way. You make something better because of what you learned. He hit the switch. The volcano glowed orange. The rumble played. Students gasped. Luna clapped, delighted. Asher smiled. And for the first time in front of a crowd, it wasn't nervous, it was proud. After the applause, as the judges moved on, Arianna and Declan approached. "You were incredible," Arianna said. Asher looked up at his dad. Declan placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I'm proud of you." Asher's lips curved into a soft smile. "Thanks, Dad." But the moment fractured when Claire walked through the back entrance. She wore all black, sleek, dramatic, like she belonged on a magazine cover rather than at a middle school event. Asher immediately stiffened. Arianna instinctively stepped closer. Claire's eyes swept the room and landed on her son, then on Arianna, then on Declan. She approached with the grace of someone used to getting attention. Her heels tapped like punctuation marks. "I wasn't invited," she said, lips taut, "but I came anyway." Asher stared at the floor. Declan stepped forward. "This isn't the time. No, you're right. That would have been weeks ago, before you handed my son over to your new living savior." Arianna felt heat rise in her chest but said nothing. Claire looked at Asher. "You could have told me about your project." Asher didn't answer. "You're not saying anything?" Claire asked, voice rising. "You're just going to stand there and pretend I don't exist." Declan's voice cut through the tension. "Stop it." But Asher stepped back, his voice flat. "You don't get to show up for the ending and expect to be the beginning." The words stopped Claire cold. Silence stretched. Then she turned to Arianna. "I hope you know what you're doing," she hissed. "I do," Arianna said, calm and unwavering. "I'm staying." Claire's expression cracked just slightly. "Must be nice to play the hero." "No," Arianna replied. "It's not. It's hard. It's messy. It costs you everything some days. But I'd rather stay in the mess than leave again." Claire stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned and walked out. After she was gone, Asher leaned against the table and exhaled like he'd been holding his breath all week. "I think I just said goodbye," he murmured. Arianna placed a hand on his back. "That takes more strength than people realize." He looked at her. "Are you sure you're staying?" "I'm not here to save anyone," she said, "but I'll keep showing up. That's a promise." That night, as the family sat around a small celebration cake in the guest house chocolate with gold sprinkles, Declan raised a paper cup. "To volcanoes," he said. Asher raised his own, and to growing back better. Arianna clinked her cup with theirs, and to staying when it matters most. Outside, the air was soft. Inside, no one felt the need to fill the silence. They just let it settle, like lava, cooling into something strong enough to stand on. 3 days after the science fair, the envelope arrived. It was hand-delivered to the Whitmore estate by a legal courier, slim, cream-colored, heavy. Declan opened it at the kitchen counter, his jaw tightening as he read. Arianna watched from across the room, bouncing Luna gently on her hip. "What is it?" she asked. Declan held the letter out without a word. It was from Claire's lawyer, formal custody hearing, date scheduled, court-ordered psychological evaluation for both parents, recommendation of home environment observation, anonymous interviews with the child. Arianna's stomach dropped. She's escalating. She whispered, "She's desperate." Declan replied, "And when Claire's desperate, she gets reckless." Arianna folded her arms. "What are you going to do?" He looked at her, and for the first time, there was a flicker of fear behind his usually calm eyes. "I'm going to ask the court for full custody." Arianna exhaled slowly. "That's going to get ugly." Declan nodded. "But I'm not going to let him get bounced between brokenness anymore. He needs stability, permanence." Arianna met his gaze. "So do you." That night, Arianna lay awake on the small couch in the guest house. Luna was asleep in her crib, the room still and warm. Outside, wind whistled softly through the trees, but her thoughts were anything but peaceful. She stared at the ceiling, words looping in her head. Permanence. She had never had it. Not really. Not as a child passed between foster homes, not as a young mother living out of borrowed rooms, not even now, in this temporary guest house, where love had bloomed in silence but the walls still didn't belong to her. She cared about Declan. She loved Asher. She lived for Luna, but she didn't belong to any of it. What if this ended? What if she lost them? What if they chose the safer path? The cleaner one, the one that didn't include a girl who arrived with nothing but a diaper bag and a backbone. In the morning, Asher was unusually quiet during breakfast. He picked at his oatmeal and barely looked up when Arianna set Luna in her high chair. "Everything okay?" she asked. He shrugged. She sat across from him. "Talk to me." His eyes flicked up. "I heard Dad on the phone last night." Arianna stayed still. "He was talking to his lawyer, said he didn't know if you should stay." Her breath caught. "Asher. He said not because he doesn't care, but because he didn't want it to hurt the case." Arianna blinked hard. "I didn't know he was thinking that." Asher nodded. "I don't want you to go." She reached across the table, took his hand. "I don't want to go either." "Then don't," he whispered. Later that afternoon, Declan returned early from work. Arianna met him outside, away from Asher's ears. "Is it true?" she asked. "You told your lawyer you might ask me to leave." He exhaled heavily. "I didn't say that outright. But, yes, we discussed whether your presence could complicate the optics." She folded her arms, shoulders tight. "Do you want me gone?" His eyes widened. "No." "Then say that. Don't let some courtroom strategy make the decision for you." "Arianna, no. I've been through enough rooms where I was only welcome until it got difficult. I need to know if I'm here because I'm convenient or because I matter." Declan stepped closer. "You matter. More than I can explain. Then fight for both of us." "I am," he said. "But you need to understand something I've never had to fight with someone before. I always fought alone. I don't know how to do this and not hurt people in the process." "You learn," she said, "by not running when it gets messy." That evening, Arianna found Asher on the porch again, notebook open in his lap. "What are you working on?" He hesitated. "A letter for the judge." She sat beside him. "I want to tell them what it feels like to finally be seen, to have someone wait for you after school, to have someone who doesn't look at their phone when you talk." He looked at her. "Do you think they'll listen?" "They should. And if they don't," she didn't have an answer. So she said the only honest thing she could. We'll tell the truth anyway. That night, Declan handed Arianna a small envelope. Inside was a copy of a legal document amendment to Asher's primary care structure. He'd listed Arianna as the boy's emotional development caregiver. It wasn't adoption. It wasn't a title with a ribbon, but it was something legal, something permanent in writing. I'm putting this in the case files, he said, so they know who's been holding him together. She swallowed hard. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not waiting until I left to realize I mattered. Declan reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. You were never temporary, Arianna. You just hadn't realized it yet. In the quiet after, Arianna stood on the porch with Luna in her arms, rocking her slowly. She looked out at the property, at the life unfolding slowly like spring buds cracking open, and she whispered, not to anyone but herself. This time, I'm staying. The family courtroom was colder than expected, not in temperature but in feeling. Arianna sat in the back row, Luna asleep in her arms. Her heart was beating in her throat. Declan stood before the judge, tall in a navy suit, hands clasped behind his back. To his left sat Claire, impeccably dressed in gray, her smile a tightly rehearsed performance. Her lawyer did most of the talking. Asher, seated in a private room down the hall, waited with the child advocate. He would be called in later after both arguments were made. Arianna wasn't technically part of the proceeding, but every word spoken felt like it passed straight through her. Claire's legal team went first. They painted her absence as emotional struggle, her return as redemption. They called Declan's parenting isolated, described Arianna as an unlicensed stranger in the home, and referred to her living arrangement as unstable. She is a single mother, Claire's lawyer said, with no formal connection to the Whitmore family. Her presence complicates Asher's emotional environment. We propose a return to maternal involvement in a neutral, court-supervised setting. Arianna gripped Luna tighter. Declan remained still. When it was his turn, he began without notes. Asher doesn't need neutrality. He said he needs consistency. He needs truth. He needs people who don't leave when life turns sideways. He paused. For the first time in his life, my son feels secure, not because of wealth, not because of me, but because someone walks through every hard day beside him. He looked back at Arianna briefly, then faced the judge again. That someone is Arianna Fields. The judge nodded slowly, then gestured for the child advocate to bring Asher in. The room held its breath. Asher stepped in, small, serious, wearing a blazer that didn't quite fit. He walked to the front and faced the bench. "Do you know why you're here?" the judge asked kindly. "Yes, Your Honor." "Would you like to say anything?" Asher took out a folded piece of paper. His voice was quiet but clear. "This is my home," he began. "Not just the house, but the people. My dad used to think working hard was how he could protect me. But you can't work enough hours to feel safe if no one hears you." He unfolded the next part. "Arianna hears me. She listens. She shows up. She holds my little sister like she's been hers forever. I'm not confused. I'm not afraid. I'm growing." He paused. "I'm not asking the court to remove my mom. I'm asking it to recognize that sometimes love doesn't come from who raised you. It comes from who stays." The room fell silent. Even Claire blinked hard. After deliberation, the judge returned with the ruling no custody granted to Claire Whitmore at this time. supervised visitation only, pending evaluation. Full legal custody remains with Mr. Declan Whitmore. Furthermore, the court acknowledges Ms. Arianna Fields as a stable and significant caregiver in the household. Arianna's eyes welled up. It wasn't marriage, it wasn't adoption, but it was a beginning. Outside the courtroom, Arianna sat on the stone steps in the sun. Luna lay peacefully across her chest, and Asher leaned into her side. Declan approached with slow steps, holding a single folded paper. "From the judge," he said, passing it to her. She opened it. It was a signed statement acknowledging her as primary emotional support guardian in Asher's life. Legal recognition. In ink. She looked up at Declan, lips parting, but before she could speak, he said, "I want you to move into the main house, with us." She blinked. "Declan, this isn't charity," he said. "It's home, and it's not mine alone anymore." He knelt beside her, hand resting gently on her knee. "We're not built from convenience. We're built from storms, from broken places, and from the people who didn't walk away." 1 month later, Arianna stood in the garden of the Whitmore estate. Luna toddled nearby. Asher was teaching her how to clap. Declan stepped out onto the patio, a tray of lemonade in hand. Ms. Jolene watched from a window, smiling softly. Arianna exhaled. This wasn't the life she expected. It was louder, fuller, riskier, but it was real, and for the first time, she wasn't just passing through someone else's life. She had one of her own. In a world that labels people by income, titles, and past mistakes, she stayed. Arianna wasn't born into privilege. She didn't have lawyers, legacies, or letters of recommendation. What she had was presence, quiet strength, the kind of love that shows up after bedtime and stays through courtrooms, and that was more than enough. Through chaos and custody battles, she became more than a babysitter. She became home. This story isn't just about Luna or Asher or Declan. It's about every person who's ever been told they don't belong, then built a family anyway. It's about rewriting what family means. It's about recognizing emotional labor, challenging class-based bias, and daring to believe that compassion can be permanent. And it's a reminder. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room isn't the CEO. It's the one who refuses to walk away when things get hard. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in Arianna, or hoped like Asher, then please help us share it. Click like if it made you feel something. Hit share to send it to someone who needs this message, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story that just might heal someone's heart. Thank you for watching. From our storytelling family to yours.